welcome to all our speakers, Mrs. Sushma Kandukuri ma'am from Parul University, Gujarat, and Dr. Mitta Raghavendra sir, HOD Department of Pharmacology, CMR College of Pharmacy, JNTUH, and all the participants are teachers and other pharma professionals. A very hearty welcome to you all for the national webinar as a part. It is being conducted as a part of RUHS Silver Jubilee celebrations, and it is in association with Indian Pharmaceutical Association. We welcome you all. I hope we gain a lot of knowledge from this session. Now I'll hand over the session to Dr. Paul, HOD Analysis Department from Aditya Biper Institutions. So I request sir to give the intro for our respective speaker.
Thank you, Nagastri ma'am, Dr. Nagastri ma'am. A very good morning to everyone present here. Warm greetings. It gives me a great pleasure to extend a warm welcome on behalf of Aditya Bangalore Institute of Pharmacy Education and Research, ABIPER, in association with RGHS and IPA. As a part of RGHS Silver Jubilee celebration, we are conducting today one-day continuing pharmacy education program by two resource persons today, that is Sushma Kandukuri and Dr. Mitta Raghavendra. I welcome you, sir and madam. And today's session, it gives me a very great pleasure to introduce Sushma Kandukuri. She has done M.Pharm in pharmaceutics from Sri Venkateshwara University, Tirupati, and B.Pharm from Raghavendra Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Anantapur. Her major interest areas is advanced pharmaceutical technology and NDDS and pharmaceutical analysis. She almost all participated in 20 seminars and workshops throughout India. And at present, she is working in Parul University, Gujarat. We are very much happy and warm welcome to welcome you, Sushma, today for one-day CPE program. And the thoughts, whatever you are sharing today, it will be a great delightful to all the participants and benefited. Thank you. Over to you, Sushma.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Hope my voice is audible clearly.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
So can I allow, can I share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Just a minute. It is visible.
Okay. So I'm on the slideshow mode. Let me, 1 second. Okay, I'm on the slideshow mode. Is it clear, madam?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, it is clear.
Okay, okay, sir. Yes. Respected Honorable Chairman, Aditya Bangalore Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Dr. B.A. Vishwanath sir, webinar convener, Mrs. Suchitra D. Madam, coordinator of today's for today, Dr. Paul Richards sir, my fellow faculty members, and dear students, other healthcare professionals, and all the attendees of today's CPE program, a very good morning to one and all. Myself, I'm Sushma. I'm from the Pharmaceutics Department from School of Pharmacy, Parul University. It takes me immense pleasure to be a part of today's CPE program. And here, today I would like to present some of my views on the prevalence of self-medication and its associated factors. So let us quickly begin the session. So here, we all know the name, the self-medication itself, the term itself is self-explanatory. That is usage of medicines by ourselves. Generally, if we are speaking, what does this self-medication term indicate? It indicates that the usage of drugs to treat self-diagnosed disorders or symptoms, or the intermittent or continued usage of the prescribed drugs for chronic or recurrent diseases or symptoms. So, taking this definition in the simple terms, we all use we all take self-medication, correct? Yes, we all use it, okay. But there should be some guidance, there should be some education, there should be some knowledge on usage of drugs on self. Here, talking about the definition, what does this mean is that we are having this, some diseases which would be sometimes very severe and sometimes the diseases would be very minimal. So in that conditions where the diagnosed diseases are very minimal or reoccurring symptoms when we are having, for example, we have a particular fever or the episode of at a certain duration of time. So the same episode, if it is being repeated, reoccurring diseases, we usually falls into the impression of using that particular medicines again this time as well for our disease or for our symptoms. And also most probably here the self-medication comes in other view that there would be some chronic diseases where the medications must be used for prolonged period of time. For example, hypertension. Correct. So once it is being diagnosed, this hypertensive medications should be used throughout the lifetime of any person. So, but when the hypertension is initially diagnosed, the drugs which have been prescribed by a particular physician would be different, and that would be changing periodically based on the severity of that particular disease. But taking that particular prescription and usage of that particular drug for the chronic disorders with the same prescription may lead to some undesirable effects. Okay, so that is what we need to address. And here, the adverse consequences of such practices should always be emphasized. So, and we should be responsible in a community, and we need to take the steps to curb it. And if you are continuously rampant irrational use of this particular medications, particularly antimicrobial agents, without the medical guidance, without the proper medical guidance, may result in inappropriate, incorrect, and undue therapy, misdiagnosis, and it sometimes delays the appropriate treatment, and also it may develop the microbial resistance, and sometimes it may even lead to the death. So let us quickly get into the guide of this self-medication. Hope my voice is clear to each and every participant. Yes? Are you all live? Are you all active? Yes? All the participants? Yes. Okay. Fine. So now let us get into the traditional definition of this particular self-medication. Here, it is traditionally defined as the taking of drugs, herbs, or any home remedies on one's own initiative, or any advice from any other person without consulting a doctor. So we are using the medications on our own. So that is what the definition is exactly indicating. Either it may be drugs or it may be any herbs or home remedies which are used by oneself or comes under the bucket of this self-medication. And of course, this self-medication is not a simple, it is not a simple phenomenon. It is a global phenomenon. Throughout the world, we have the usage of this self-medication, and every day, the large number of population are entering into the bucket of this self-medication, and the people are continuously practicing this self-medication in the form of self-care of our health. Correct? Yes. But here, if we talk about 1960s, in the West side and everything, where the self-medications and self-usage of medicines was potentially regarded as an unhealthy practice. Initially, it was regarded that no, the people should not use the medications on self. It is an unhealthy practice. But later on, the usage of the medicines on their own has dramatically increased. How this has been increased, we will look into that. Now, before going into the story of how the self-medication came into prevalence, let us see the common sources.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Students, let us know the common sources. We all know that. We all know the sources, but we are just recalling. What are the sources? What are the common sources? First comes the picture of our family, correct? So our fathers or our parents or elderly persons keep on advising us since childhood that if you are having any illness, they'll give us one pill and take it. You'll be on the safe side, correct? So that particular, even we advise to our children, yes? So that is the basic source where the self-medication gets started with. And also the friends. We have a common chat with our friends, and then that friends they will advise us when we are talking about our illness or any other kind of diseases or something like that. We will be having that particular conversation where we feel like, yes, we can have this particular thing that yes, you use this medication, I have used this medication, this worked out fantastically on my disease, so you can go and use it. Particularly the female, they'll be having this in the cosmetic session, correct, if I'm not wrong. This particular cream would work fantastically on our skin or something like that, and we often get that we need to take up that particular thing which would reduce my hair fall, or which would reduce my skin, make my skin glowing, or reduce some kind of infection which I have got externally. So these kind of things which we commonly come across. And similar to the friends, we also have the bucket of the neighbors, where they'll be advising us on the common medications which they'll be using, and they'll be advising us to use for some or the other reasons. And also previously prescribed drugs. This is one of the most noticeable point where we should monitor the self-medication. We'll definitely, now the technology is emerging, even I keep all my prescriptions in one particular record, and I'll maintain that, so that when I'm going into the next diagnosis, I can take all my prescriptions to my physician, correct? So here, sometimes this particular practice of increasing the awareness in the people, it is also leading to some wrong way of usage of medicines. If one person is having one illness at a particular time, he might be prescribed a particular course of medication based upon the conditions prevailing with him at that particular zone. But if the same disease is reoccurring in a particular person, he should definitely have an checkup with the physician, and should not use the previous prescribed drugs. But this is the common source where the people usually have the practice of taking the previously prescribed prescription, go to the pharmacy, take the prescription and take the medications. And sometimes even the prescription, if we are fruitful enough to get the medications, we can grab that medications. And also now with the bloom of electronic media and the bloom of networking and everything, we can see Google is on our fingertips, so we can access to everything within second through the Google, correct? So here the Google has got number of suggestions, and not only that, we are also having a lot of advertisements in the newspapers and popular magazines, where the awareness of the people regarding the usage of medications is increasing day by day. So this is also the major source for motivating the people to use the self-medication. So here in this particular corner, you can see a bar graph. And this graph is taken from one of the research paper, where they have conducted the survey on frequency of usage of medications, that is self-medication, by MBBS students. They have taken different category of students, that is first year, second year, third year, and interns and everything. And they have done the survey. No doubt the survey resulted that the people are under the self-medication. They are using their medications by their own. Of course, they are the doctors, they are the physicians. We do agree with that. But they usually do the self-medication as well. And here, in the self-medication, I just want to emphasize on the category of drugs which are being used by oneself. For example, if we take paracetamol, yes, that comes under the first usage list, and also non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, antihistaminic drugs. This antihistaminic drugs falls under the first category of usage in the US under the self-medication, and also anti-infective agents and gastrointestinal drugs, psychotic drugs, herbal medicines, and also the miscellaneous category of drugs, apart from all these kinds of medications. So these are the most commonly used drugs as per their survey by those category of students. So what is that? This is nothing but trend to over-the-counter, RX to over-the-counter switch. Here, previously the medicines we used to have the medications only through the prescription. But now the medications are also available through over-the-counter. So this transfer of prescription medicines to the over-the-counter status is known as RX to OTC switch. So here, what is happening is that the medicines are initially introduced. When the medications are introduced into the market, they are introduced as a prescription medicines, no doubt. Then after some time, what is happening is that based upon the availability, based upon the targeted population of usage of a particular medicine, large scale usage, large scale experience, when the population comes into the most number of population, when they have started using this medication and everything. So they are people, the manufacturers would gather all the scientific information, and they would themselves draw to submit an application to the appropriate authority of the medicines to give them the OTC status. So this trend of switching of prescription drug to OTC status is nothing but RX to over-the-counter switch. Now, yes, self-medication can be fatal. We need to note it. In the previous slide, in the bar graph, which I've shown you within 2 or 3 minutes back, here in the bar graph, we have seen what is the most commonly used drug? Paracetamol, correct? Yes. So most of the people in the most of the population, of course, it is under their survey that they have got the paracetamol, but in many case studies, in the upcoming case studies also, we can see that most of the people are using the paracetamol, the over-the-counter drug, as an over-the-counter drug, and they are mostly using that paracetamol as a self-medication. So here we can see a case study, and this case study was being reported by Dr. Arun Oman. He's a consultant neurosurgeon at Lakeshore Hospital and Research Center, Kochi. Here, the doctor has emphasized one particular case study that there was a 47-year-old man. He used to have the recurrent headaches. So whenever he's having the recurrent headache or pain and everything, he's forcefully, he's like whenever he feels like pain, he used to take one paracetamol. So this behavior, this habit made him to use the paracetamol quite frequently. So when he is using this paracetamol, his pain is relieved. So his headache is relieved. So he started using it quite frequently without any medical advice. But after some time, the patient became weak, and also he had mild liver problem, which he didn't notice. And we all know that paracetamol, it would have a severe effect on the liver. So here, unfortunately, in this particular case, as an example, he has developed a severe liver failure, and the patient lost his life yes, by the usage of paracetamol. So here, doctor concluded that paracetamol, like anything, needs to be taken in moderation. And also it can cause death if anyone is doing the overdose too radically. So that is the thing should be noticed. And let us get into the another case study. Here I have another example which has been reported by Soyens, the professor and head of the Department of Pediatrics, Mangalore AG Institute of Medical Sciences. Here sir was quoting that if the person where another common usage of self-medication is the antibiotics. And most of the people nowadays are developing this antibiotic resistance, correct? Microbial, like this particular thing is developed because the patients are using the antibiotics. And here the person is having the sore throat or a mild infection or tonsillitis or whatever it is. The person is he know about some antibiotics. With the knowledge of some antibiotics, he's taking that antibiotics, but without the knowledge whether the infection which he's having is viral or bacterial. If it is viral, then no doubt he doesn't need any antibiotics. But if it is something like bacterial, then the patient requires antibiotics, and that also under controlled supervision, not on the self-medication. So this is mostly reported. And this is the one which I have found in the Scottish Journal in the year 2011. What happened is that there was an winter flu epidemic. So in that particular winter flu epidemic, they have noticed self-medication. And also they have noticed 2 cases of deaths which are associated with the self-medication. First lady who was using this particular self-medication is that she was continuously using the ibuprofen. Okay, participants, are you listening? Am I boring you? Is the session good? Yes. I wanted to be with yes.
Yes, ma'am. We can listen to you, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Okay, okay, ma'am. Like yes. So here, what I want to say you is that here, what is happening is that this particular winter flu epidemic, when it has been occurred, okay, this particular lady is using the ibuprofen by over the counter. So whenever she is using the ibuprofen, the lady has lost her life because of the hemorrhagic duodenitis. And here she has got a lot of bleeding, a lot of bleeding and abdominal, like duodenal swelling, inflammation, pain, bleeding, and eventually she has lost her life. And in the second case, what happened is that there is one more lady, she was using again paracetamol, and she was combining this paracetamol doses with the proprietary flu medicines and the Timex, that is paracetamol and the codeine combination, which usually used for the relief of pain, correct? So this particular combination of medicines she was using, and this combination has increased the dose of paracetamol than the usually recommended doses. So that also led to the death of that particular lady. So these are all the examples of cases where self-medication has proven to be fatal. Now, let us get into the statistics of this particular self-medication. So there were a lot of surveys. There were a lot of surveys which have been conducted on the self-medication, and all the studies which were carried out, they have proven that self-medication is the most common practice, and it is a global phenomenon. So everyone knows that. And here, the self-medication has got some advantages and it has got some disadvantages. Advantages, we can just club up into 2 or 3 things. That is like it will reduce it is like convenience for the patient, and the medical expenses would be reduced, and the patient will have the immediate effect sometimes if they want to have the immediate effect, and if they want to reduce the waiting time and everything, they can have this self medication. That is what is the advantages, and if the disadvantages are more for that. And here, nowadays, the statistical survey, what it indicated is that healthcare system is turning out to be very costly day by day. So here, this increase in the cost of this particular healthcare policies and everything, the people sometimes switch to the self-medication. And also, it was clearly noticed that some of the drugs which are being they are given only under the prescription in the overseas, but those medications are the over-the-counter drugs in few nations, particularly in the developing countries. So it is a prescribed drug in one country, it's a prescription drug in one country, and it's an OTC drug in another country. So this also has driven the people into the self-medication. And here, in this particular image, we can see the prevalence of this particular self-medication in various nations. If it is the South Africa, it comes under the highest prevalence rate of 14%, and followed by the US, and with a prevalence rate of 13% for self-medication. And Australia and Germany, they're having the prevalence rate of 11%, and Sweden, UK, and Spain has got this ratio to 9%, and Switzerland, Mexico, and Italy, they have got the ratio of 8%. So these are the various statistical data which we can see. We'll see some more examples. Yes, so this is one of the survey which was being conducted, and here in this survey they have conducted the prevalence of self-medication practice among health science students in Iran. So here they have got a surprising result of prevalence of self-medication to be 89.6%. So which is a noticeable range, correct? Yes. So the prevalence rate of this self-medication was found to be 89.6%. And here, what are the most commonly in their particular research, in their particular survey, they found that the most commonly used medications are cold drugs, analgesics, and antibiotics. And out of that, cold pills, acetaminophen, that is analgesic, and amoxicillin capsules are most frequently used medications. And here, this particular thing is irrespective of any age group, marital status, or insurance status, or residence, whatever it is, whatever the category of that particular group, they are using this particular self-medication. And if you see one more example, here, it is in the India itself. Yes. So I like when we see the urban areas of India in this particular research, if we can notice that the prevalence of self-medication rate was 92.8%. Shocking, correct? Yes, but it was the survey which was conducted by this particular people, and they have reported it that the survey resulted in a study of in a result of 92.8% in the prevalence of self-medication. And here, the most commonly used self-medication drugs are paracetamol and cough syrups. Okay, and fever and more common cold, which the people have, are the most common reasons for the self-medication in this particular survey. And moving ahead, Yes, this is the era of internet. We know that internet pharmacy, telemedicines, this is all flourishing like a boon, correct? So here, the use of internet for practicing the self-medication was being reported in this particular paper. So here, if we can see, the self-medication range is very, very high. And here, this survey, they are saying that in the improvement of internet practices, the survey suggested that there should be a standards, there should be a minimum practice standards regarding self-medications on net, and that should be set by the government medical associations, and in each country like India, medical association in India and everywhere where this is prevalent. And also the information which is provided in this particular, when they are reporting, that should be very simple and it should be easily readable, and it should be a local language if possible, so that the reader can easily understand. And there should be a special flag when they are reporting for the scheduled H drugs, that these are the drugs which should be used only with the prescription. So these are the, like, we need to have continuous efforts to regulate the usage of OTC medicines, and the people should be like, we should increase the awareness in the people regarding the OTC medicines. And here in this particular survey, this is done in the Kerala, Ernakulam district, and this particular survey, it has reported that the prevalence of self-medication of antibiotics, this is the survey on antibiotic medications only, but they have got a result of 3.31%. So which we feel like it is very less, but not, because here the population of that particular district is only 1 lakh. But in the 1 lakh population, the 3% is like, which is a noticeable range of usage of antibiotics, because uncontrolled use of these antibiotics may lead to the danger of development of resistance to antibiotics. And also this particular, as we already mentioned in previously, that the people are given antibiotics, that they are motivated to take the antibiotics for minor infections like sore throat and everything. So once the people use these medications, and after that, once taking the antibiotics course, they should be used for a certain period of time. But if the symptoms disappear, the people stop using these medications. Okay, so that particular thing should be addressed, and the people should have more awareness regarding all these things. And next important survey, yes, and this is the meta-analysis which is done in India. So when I've shown you the chart, statistical prevalence chart, I know everyone would be looking forward for what would be the surveillance rate, or what would be the prevalence rate of usage of self-medications in India. So this is the survey which was being done, and it is the meta-analysis report. And here what they have concluded is that the self-medication practices in India was observed to be 53.57%. And here, what is the common reason for practicing, for people to practice the self-medication, is that familiarity with the medicine. And what is the common reason for which the people are using self-medication in India is that headache. Headache was reported as the most commonly common disease for which the people or the people get motivated to use the self-medication. And non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and also the anti-allergens are also the most frequently used self-medicated drugs for headaches as well as the cold and cough. Now, we have seen that self-medication, we understood, we all know, and we even seen what is self-medication, what is the prevalence rate, what is the statistics and everything. And here, now the thing is that we need to, yes, now we need to make this particular self-medication. Why do the people go for the usage of this particular self-medication? Why do the people use this self-medication? Why they're getting motivated? The first important thing is that the maintenance of their own health. They feel that they're competent enough to manage the reoccurring illness, which is of having very short symptoms and everything. And here, the histaminic drugs, receptor blockers, corticosteroids, antifungal drugs, oral contraceptive drugs, this will come under this particular more usage of drugs. And also, yes, sir, Paul, sir, are you there in the room? I can see some student making this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Can you please ask them like not to do that? Yeah.
Students,
Amit M.
kindly
Raj.
don't do that. We behave professional.
Amit M. Raj, please kindly behave and don't kindly interrupt the session. If you are not interested, please kindly exit. Please don't disturb the session. Speaker is getting disturbed. Thank you.
Yes.
Ma'am, continue, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
I'm
Thank you,
sorry
ma'am.
for
Thank you, ma'am and sir. Yes, yes. So here, the thing is that self-medication is very common. Okay, and here there are a number of reasons for it. That is urge of self-care, feeling the sympathy towards the family members when they are feeling sick. We are in urgency. Even if my son is getting sick, I'll be in urgency to cure him, to get him out of that particular suffering. Correct. So that particular thing and lack of time, and sometimes lack of health services, particularly during the pandemic situation where we are having the healthcare crisis, and also the financial constraints, ignorance, misbeliefs, and extensive advertisements on the social media, and extensive available of drugs on OTC counter. These are all the driving factors for growing trend of the self-medication. Now, how the self-medication, what is the story behind self-care and self-medication? The particular thing is that previously, that is from 1970 to today, the self-medication and self-care has emerged like anything. It has proliferated like anything. So in the 1970, there was an association, that is the World Federation of Proprietary Medicine Manufacturers. They have made one objective, and they have, that is World Self-Medication Industries, they have made an objective that they have classified the medications into prescription medicines and non-prescription medicines. And later on in the 1975, there is a symposium which is held by European regional offices regarding the self-care. It is an international symposium which focused on the self-care. And also in 1977, the World Health Assembly has adopted the resolution of calling health for all. And this is where there is a declaration of Alma Ata. That is nothing but here, this particular declaration emphasizes that there should be an self-care, that is the public healthcare should be improved, which would contribute for the global healthcare. And also, this also emphasizes that there should be the physical, mental, social well-being of a person. Not only the person is free from the diseases, but he should be physically, mentally, and socially, everything. He should be free. He should be happy. That is what the declaration is made. And in the year 1981, there is in World Medical Association, they have stressed the responsibility of people for their own health in Declaration of Rights to the Patient. So all these are flourishing, all these organizations, all these unions, they are flourishing, and they are increasing the awareness. They are making the healthcare system most adoptable by the common person in that particular period. And later on, in the year 1986, in the Ottawa, Canada, they have launched the Ottawa Charter for Health Promotion, in which self-care was addressed as one of the 3 important mechanisms for the health promotion. And now we are in the modern medicine of India. Yes, we are accessible to the modern effective medicines, and this particular access to the modern medicines was begun earlier in the year 1980s, and also the medications are available which are on the prescription, they begin to available on the non-prescription status. And among those products, the first switch of drug is nothing but ibuprofen. That is for the treatment of pain in the UK and US. This particular drug, it received the non-prescription status. And in the Canada, hydrocortisone became available without the prescription in the year 1986. So this is the story. Slowly, self-care, self-medication, healthcare is emerging, everything. So the responsibility of the people to govern their own health is also promoted. The awareness is promoted, and this particular thing got changes in the healthcare system, which eventually led to the self-medication. And as we already discussed, there are several factors that influence one to have the self-medication. That is education, family. Yes, we are all educated persons, and this particular education and knowing the knowledge on medication, having the knowledge on medications, family, society, law, availability of drugs, exposure to the advertisement. These are all the factors which influences the self-medication. And what are the potential risks? What would be the risk if one is using the self-medication? First important thing is incorrect self-diagnosis, failure to seek appropriate medical advice promptly, and incorrect choice of therapy, and failure to recognize special pharmacological risks, rare but sometimes may have adverse effects, and failure to recognize or self-diagnosis contraindications, interactions, warnings, and precautions, and also failure to recognize that some active substances we don't know, correct? So sometimes the people, because of lack of awareness, they already use that particular medicine, but when they are being prescribed again, they will take with a different name, so they'll be taking both the medications, and that would have the overdose of that particular medication. And also incorrect route of administration. We know that sometimes we can't, we don't know the route of administration. So incorrect route of administration, time of administration, and inadequate or excessive dose may be taken. And here, I want to mention one example here. We have one of the most commonly prescribed drug, Clopidogrel. Okay, it's an antiplatelet drug. So this particular drug, recently, there is a lot of discussion going on in this particular drug, Clopidogrel, which is an antiplatelet drug. And here, this particular drug, when it is given to certain category of patients, when they are using this particular medication for prolonged usage, what is happening is that they are having the cerebral micro bleeds. That is, they'll have some bleeds in the cerebral, and here this particular the brain bleeding and everything. What happens is that the patient body from here, from wherever in that particular column they have got that particular bleed, the patient body will become numb. He'll not be able to move his hand, he'll not be able to move his leg, the supply would be stopped, and eventually sometimes it may even lead to the death of the person. So it's a simple medication, and the disease is commonly named as clopidogrel induced cerebral micro bleeds. Okay, so this is the way the medication would affect the person's life. So we should be very careful when we are using the medications, and the person should be aware about the risks of using the medication, and then only should opt for the self-medication. And also, we have the extensive prolonged usage of medication. Yes, and risk of dependence and abuse. Yes, once we have taken a medicine, it is reducing our pain. Definitely, I would be attracted to take up the medicine when I'm suffering with that pain again. So that particular dependency would be developed, and sometimes the drugs would have some interactions. Yes, food drug interactions, drug interactions may also be seen, and also storage conditions may be inappropriate, and also failure to report the current self medication when the patient is going near the physician. If the particular disease is not controlled, then they go to the physician. They consult the physician in the time of severity, and that time they doesn't explain the physician properly for any other reason that they have used, what are the medications that they have used by self. So that is also a potential risk, and also failure to recognize or report the adverse drug reactions.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. Can you kindly let the participants in?
Yes, madam. Yes. Yeah. It is done, madam.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Continue.
Yes. Now, what is the potential risk at the community level? And at the community level, the improper self-medication would eventually increase the drug-induced diseases and also the wasteful public expenditure. Now, one second. Now, how to prevent the potential risks associated with the self-medication? The two people should play a hero roles in controlling this self-medication. First thing is the role of healthcare professional, and the next thing would be the role of pharmacist. So as a healthcare professional, he plays a very crucial role in preventing the risks of self-medication. And here, the professionalism aspects in the daily practice would, this would emphasize on three basic things, that is education, therapeutic advice, and information. So he should make, he should provide, the healthcare professional should provide sufficient information to the patients and explain the patients why it is used for, how, like what is the, what are the effects if the person is taking this particular medicine upon by his own decisions. That information should be provided by the healthcare professional, and also complete therapeutic advice should be given to him. That is, what could be the dose, what is the dosage frequency frequency, how long should you use this medication, when you should come back to us, when you should stop using this medication, how to take it, everything should have a set of guidelines, and that advice should be very clearly instructed by the healthcare professional to the patient. And also education, and they should import proper education to that particular population. And also the particular this is very important for self medication of the children by the parents or take carers. So they should be properly educated, each and every one, and like they should have that particular attitude of adopting the new strategies. They should have the complete knowledge of the medications before going for taking any step on the usage of the medication. And also the pharmacist also plays a very crucial role, and he's the one who act as a communicator, and he's a quality drug supplier, and he should act as a trainer and supervisor for usage of drugs, and he should be a collaborator with various healthcare professionals, and most importantly, he should be a responsible health promoter of the society. So here we should communicate the relevant information to the patient when giving the medications, how to take medications and how to deal with the safety issues. And we should procure the good quality medicines. And also he should be a trainer and supervisor, like how the community, what are the healthcare workers which are involved in the handling and distribution of medications, he should properly train them. And also the collaborators, with the various healthcare professionals, national professional associations, and the pharmaceutical industries, governments, that is healthcare managing authorities from the government, and patients, general public. He should be a collaborator, and he should develop that relationship. And also you should be a health promoter, that is promoting campaigns. We should promote campaigns to increase the awareness of health issues and disease prevention, and provide advice to the individuals to help them informed about their health choices. And now this is the promotion of responsible self-medication. Each time various organizations, that is Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India, OTC Committee, World Health Organization, and many other authorities, along with the International Council of Nurses, they are continuously promoting the usage of responsible self-medications. And these are the list of most commonly prescribed self-medications, that is analgesics, antipyretics, antitussives, antidiarrheals, calcium and vitamin supplements, sedatives, and certain antibiotics, and many herbal and homeopathic remedies. So now we are all the sufferers of this COVID-19 pandemic. So this particular term of self-medication, it has become a boon. Like every person in the healthcare society, from the rural areas to each and every educationalist or whatever the category or whatever the bucket of the person is falling into, they know what is the medications that are going on in the worldwide for this COVID-19 pandemic. So this particular knowledge of medications is making the persons motivated to use self-medication. Pandemic fear, that is also driving the people to use this particular self-medication and home remedies and everything. And see, this is like a situation where no country is prepared for this. Here, to take care of this pandemic situation, no country is well prepared, and this is driving many countries into the economic crisis as well as the healthcare crisis. Healthcare crisis is coming. So this particular crisis is making the people many suggestions for self-medications for this pandemic from friends, family, neighbors, pharmacists, and previous prescriptions, previous experiences of the persons on the social medias and everything. This is all driving the people to use the self-medication. For example, when the pandemic hit all the world, there is a documented evidence of usage of hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine without the prescription for treatment of this COVID-19. But later on, the US Food and Drug Administration declared that the usage of hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine is completely unsafe in mild to moderate COVID-19 based upon their therapeutic safety profile. And also, the UK researchers have declared that the dexamethasone is to be a life-saving drug in the treatment of COVID-19. But the UK Minister of National Health Services, he himself declared that dexamethasone should be used only in the critically ill patients and should not be used as a self-medication in mild to moderate cases due to the inherent safety problems. So here, what I can say is that no country is prepared for this pandemic. It takes upon the responsibility of the government to increase the availability of the medication so that this stockpiling of the drugs would be stopped, and the people should have the proper awareness, and then only they should go for the usage of this self-medication. And next, I want to conclude that this self-medication is an alarming concept. We should have the sufficient knowledge about dose, intake time, side effects, overdose, and everything, or else it may result in effects such as antibiotic resistance, skin problems, hypersensitive or allergic reactions, and everything. And here, there should be a holistic approach to address this problem, and dispensing modes, it should be under proper education, strict regulation, and managerial strategies to make healthcare easily accessible and cost effective would be a solution for this. And these are my references on this presentation. And I thank each and every one here for your patient listening and for your valuable time. Yes. And also, I would again thank the higher authorities of ABIPR for providing me this opportunity, and also would like to thank my management of Parul University, and a special thanks to my principal, Dr. Lalit Lataja Madam, for always motivating and encouraging us to be a part of any program. Thank you, one and all.
A big thank you, Sushma, once again, for your efforts towards great topic, self-medication. A few highlights of role of pharmacist and what are the examples you have taken for self-medication. And thank you for visiting today's program and enlightening with your knowledge.
Yes,
Over to Nagastri ma'am.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you once again.
That was quite an informative session on self-medication and the rest with true examples, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sushma Kandukuri ma'am. Now I would request all the participants to type in your queries in the chat box so that ma'am can answer to your queries. Dr. Paul sir to introduce our second speaker for today, Dr. Mita Raghavendra sir, to our participants. Over to you, sir.
One student.
Yes,
you
sir.
can engage for some time until ma'am will get ready. Devraj, I think. Even the speaker is also ready, na? Sushma,
yes,
madam?
Yes, sir. Yes, can you listen?
It is able to see, read the question if it is possible.
Yes. Can leaflets be made mandatory with OTC drugs? Yes, leaflets are available with certain medications, but the thing is that in most of the developing countries, if you can see, nobody is using or even interested to take up the complete box of medication. We will have the handouts, like 3 medications, 4 medications, 6 medications, which we would often have the chopping down of the leaflet, which is there with that particular drug. So I think that leaflet should be made mandatory, and it should, like, we being the pharmacists, we should educate our parents, or we should educate all the healthcare people that go for the reading, or make a habit of reading the leaflet and ask for the complete medication kit, so that we'll be provided with the leaflet. And that particular leaflet, if you're completely addressing, yes, definitely it would have all the information related to that particular drug, OTC drug. Okay, Dheeraj?
Thanks, ma'am.
Dr. Mita Raghavendra sir. Sir, request Dr. Paul sir to introduce our second speaker, Dr. Mita Raghavendra sir, to our participants.
Thank you, Dr. Nagastri ma'am.
Yes.
It gives me a very immense pleasure to introduce Raghavendra sir for today's session, which has been conducting by Aditya Bangalore Institute of Pharmacy Education Research, the part of RGHS Silver Jubilee celebration. Raghavendra sir has did a PhD from JNTU Anantapur in the year 2017, and M.Pharm Pharmacology from SV University Tirupati in the year 2009, and B.Pharm from Raghavendra Institute of Pharmaceutical Education Research Anantapur, completed in the year 2007. Sir currently working as an associate professor and HOD Department of Pharmacology, CMR College of Pharmacy, Hyderabad, JNTH. And enlisting few achievements of Sir. Sir has received many research grants under UGC worth of 3 lakhs in the year 2016. And professionally, Sir has qualified in GATE with 92 percentile. And many awards have received from JNTU Hyderabad in the year 2016 for oral presentation. And many technical skills. Few are I'm highlighting few technical skills like Sir as having a strategy regarding device non-clinical development, work statement, protocol, study reports, ability to critically analyze data performed in pharmacological research using statistical software, expert in handling various pharmacological equipment like hematology analyzer, rotarod apparatus, and 2 patent details have been enlisted here for the titles herbal lipstick and polyherbal anti-dandruff shampoos with the patent application number 2021 and 2020. And many publications are there as a first author and as well as also corresponding author. Thank you, sir. Thank you for a part of today's program. And today's knowledge definitely will enlighten our students and all the participants, those who have been participated today and got benefited. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Yeah, first of all, Principal cum Chairman, Dr. B.A. Viswanath Garu, Webinar Convener, Srimati D. Suchitra Garu, and Webinar Coordinator, Dr. M. Paul Richards, and Aditya Birla Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, and participants. Good morning to everyone. I am very happy to say that I also a part of this one-day national webinar on continuing pharmacy education and program as a part of Rajiv Gandhi University Health Sciences Silver Jubilee celebrations. Thank you. Thank you. I am sharing my screen to everyone, and I am very happy today because I am also as a part of this one-day national webinar on continuous pharmacy education program. And then we know very well, okay, drug interactions are an avoidable cause of patient's harm. Drug interactions are an avoidable cause of patient's harm. Harm may occur due to either decreased drug effect causing drug toxicity. Sometimes toxicity is permanent. System failure or tissue damage takes place. For example, if we administer aminoglycosides along with other drugs like cyclosporin, it may cause permanent kidney failure. Okay, so before prescribing, before using, we must know the knowledge about on the drugs. As a pharmacist, we have the updated knowledge on all types of drugs and their potential toxic effects. Sorry, and see here, the harmful drug interactions are important as they cause up to 20% of adverse drug reactions and sometimes require hospitalization also. So drug interactions are any drug food interactions or drug beverage interactions or drug supplement interactions is considerable because these are responsible for many unwanted effects. Sometimes we will be expect, most of the times we are unexpected those drug interactions. And coming to the definition of drug interactions, drug interaction is defined as the pharmacological activity of one drug. The pharmacological activity of one drug is altered by concomitant use of another drug, or sometimes due to the presence of food, beverage, supplement, or another drug. Induced interaction. Already I told you that drug interaction sometimes beneficial. Okay. Next, see here the drug whose activity is affected by such an interaction is called as object drug. The agent has the precipitant. So the interaction occurs between object drug and precipitant. And then factors contribute to drug interaction. Number of factors are involved within the polypharmacy, means the patient takes at a time more than 2 drugs. Generally, polypharmacy means up to 2 to 11 drugs they will take at a time with or without knowledge. Okay, the reason for polypharmacy is the problems arises after self-medication. One is the therapy fail and drug resistance. Okay, because of that, more drugs are required to take. It presents for potential drug interactions. Just in the last slide, I given the good example to you. If you take the aminoglycosides along with cyclosporin, it may cause potential nephrotoxicity. Kidney failure takes place. Second one is the multiple prescribers. This is the unfortunate. Most of the people, they are not believe the prescription prescribed by their physician. Then they will approach new physician. Sometimes they will follow the new systems also. Initially, they will be start with allopathy. They will end with the Ayurveda, Siddha or Unani. But they never disclose about their previous. So without no same drug, then the chance of drug interactions is possible. That is also one of the reasons for toxic therapeutic failure. Next, multiple pharmacological effects of drugs. Okay, and one pharmacological effect. Here, the pharmacist plays the important role. He will give therapeutic uses of drugs to the patients also during patient counseling. For example, we know very well alcohol is a CNS depressant, and if you take along with any sedative drugs, their activity become more. And one more example I will give you, that is the ACE inhibitors. We know very well ACE inhibitors are routinely prescribed in treatment of hypertension. Okay, and also diuretics. One of the diuretic is potassium sparing diuretics. Okay, if you take potassium sparing diuretics, they induce the retention of potassium, hyperkalemia, effect on heart function. Okay, so before prescribing, the physician take care, as well as pharmacist plays the important role. He will explain the possible drug interactions to the physician. Okay, next, multiple diseases are predisposing illness, particularly in elder patients. Okay, because they are already suffering with the more than one illness, like kidney problems or liver problems or hormonal imbalance, they will suffer with more. Then the chance of drug interaction is more. Okay, metabolism, altered physiological functions, poor patient. Then see here, the reason for the poor patient complaints are: one is the fear, the price of the drug, and misunderstanding about the condition, and too many medications prescribed by the physician, and lack of symptoms, mistrust. They don't have the confidence about on the prescription. Sometimes they don't have the confidence about on the physician, and depression, worry. Then they are very poor to express their feelings. That is also one of the reasons for drug interactions. Okay, advancing age of patient. See here, I'll be told to you, particularly elderly patients, they are vulnerable to the drug interactions. They are very vulnerable to the drug interactions because of altered physiological function, hormonal imbalance, advanced age. then decreased metabolic state of the body, then the chance of drug interactions is more. Next thing is the drug related factors. Particularly, we know very well in the market, more variety of formulations are available for a single drug. Okay, sometimes one formulation alters the efficacy of the another drug. For example, if we administer the aminoglycosides and other antibiotics in a single infusion bottle, then precipitation takes place, then therapeutic failure occurs. That is also drug related factor, means because of formulations. Okay, nothing but simply say incompatibility will be arise, drug failure takes place. Next, types of drug interactions. First one is the drug-drug interactions, drug-food interactions, and drug-disease interactions. We will be discussed one by one. First one is, then before discussing about the various drug interactions, see what are the net changes. First thing is the either increased effect. Increased effect means permanent damage to the body, and the next thing is the decreased effect. Hello.
Sorry for the interruption. I think sir was having a network breakage. That's the reason sir is adjusting it. We are getting a few questions in the chat box, which are being noted down, which will be answered in the last.
Harmful drug interactions. Harmful drug interactions are important. Those cause up to 20% of adverse drug reactions, which are unavoidable. Okay, so drug interactions are generally or mostly undesirable, rarely desirable. Okay, desirable means, example, enhancement of activity of penicillin when administered with probenecid, which are wantonly we will administered along with probenecid. Then how it will be enhance the activity of penicillin? Both will be excreted in the tubular via tubular secretion, but during secretion only one drug will be secreted. In that, probenecid is competitively secreted and penicillin will be re-enter into the systemic circulation, and it shows their effect long term. That is the beneficial drug interaction. But mostly drug interactions are undesirable, but which are desirable when we have the sound knowledge on drug interactions or drug profile. Drug profile means their pharmacodynamic properties and pharmacokinetic properties and adverse drug reactions. Next slide, please. Right. Mechanisms of drug interactions. The 4 mechanisms by which an interaction can develop. One is the behavioral drug interactions, pharmaceutical interactions, pharmacokinetic interactions, pharmacodynamic interactions. Next slide, please. Then first one is the behavioral interactions. See here, it occurs when one drug alters the patient's behavior to modify compliance with another drug. And generally, the behavior changes we do observe during depression therapy. Okay, a depression patient taking an antidepressant may become more compliant with medication as symptoms improves. That is the suitable example for behavioral interactions. The next slide, madam. Next, pharmaceutical interactions. Already I told to you the formulation. One formulation alters the efficacy of another formulation. For example, if we administer aminoglycosides with other antibiotics in a same infusion, precipitation takes place. Then therapeutic failure occurs. Okay, see here, the pharmaceutical interactions also called as incompatibility. Incompatibility. Okay, here I have given the one example, that is ampicillin, chlorpromazine, barbiturates interact with dextran in solutions and are broken down or from chemical compounds. So we never administer ampicillin, chlorpromazine or barbiturates in dextran IV infusion because it causes precipitation. Next slide, please, madam. Then pharmacokinetic interactions. What is pharmacokinetics? Pharmacokinetics means what the body does to the drug. In the pharmacokinetics, we will discuss in detail about absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. Then, first of all, what is absorption? Absorption means the entry of the drug in the systemic circulation at the site of administration. Any alternations occurs at the site of administration or at the site of absorption is called absorption interactions. Next, distribution interactions. Distribution interactions occurs due to the displacement mechanism. Okay. The third one is the metabolism interactions. Metabolism interactions occurs due to the precipitant drug. It will either induce or suppress the enzymatic activity, particularly microsomal enzyme function in liver. And excretion interactions. Excretion interactions means alters the rate of elimination from the body. Okay, the reason for the altered excretion is maybe the alters the blood flow, alters the pH, etc. Next slide, please, madam. Then absorption interactions, the net effect is either faster or slower drug absorption. Either the precipitant drug enhance the absorption rate of object drug, or it will slower the absorption, and also more or less complete drug absorption takes place. It means sometimes the concentration of the drug in plasma is above the therapeutic level, maybe in the toxic level. Sometimes the concentration of the drug in plasma is below therapeutic level. Below therapeutic level means therapeutic failure. If the above the therapeutic level means toxic effects, sometimes death takes place. Okay, next one is the major mechanisms of drug interactions. First one is the complexation and adsorption. Means they will make a complexation with object drug, then decrease the rate of absorption. Okay, next, alternation in GIPH. See here, because of altered GIPH, decrease the rate of absorption of the drug. And alternation gut motility. Motility also plays the important place here. Increase the motility and the drug is less times present in the stomach, then automatically decrease the rate of absorption. Next, inhibition of GI enzymes. Then alters the enzymatic function, also decrease the rate of absorption. Alternation of GI microflora, particularly those drugs which are absorbed in intestine. We know very well intestine is a rich source of microbial flora. It plays important role in the absorption of many drugs. Okay, many drugs. In the absence of microbial flora, alters the absorption of particularly nutrients. And then malabsorption syndrome, because of malabsorption means poor absorption capacity. Also one of the reasons for altered absorption. Next slide, please. Then here I have given few examples related to the absorption interaction. First one is the tetracycline. It is a object drug, and antacids, food and minerals supplements containing particularly aluminum, magnesium, ferrous, zinc and calcium ions. See, if you administer along with those precipitant drugs which make a complexation with tetracyclines, then insoluble complexes will be formed and decrease the rate of absorption of tetracyclines. Therapeutic failure takes place. So we must avoid along with milk products or antacids. Next one is the alternation of GIPH. See here, we know very well antacids, which are neutralize the gastric pH, then come to the neutral. The pH become above the 5. Then at pH, most of the drugs, their absorption will be decreased. Example, sulfonamides, aspirin, sodium means their absorption will be increased. Depends upon the nature of the objective drug. In case of sulfonamides, aspirin, ferrous sulfate, their absorption will be increased. The next one is the alternation of GI motility, particularly metoclopramide. We know very well metoclopramide is also called as gastric harrying agent. Okay, if administered along with aspirin, diazepam, levodopa, mexiletine, increase the rate of absorption. Okay, then anticholinergics, if you administer along with levodopa, lithium carbonate, and mexiletine, delay the gastric emptying and decrease the rate of absorption. Next slide, please. And then alternation of GI microbial flora. See, we know very well antibiotics. All antibiotics which destruct the microbial flora, then automatically increase the rate of absorption of the many drugs. Few drugs absorption will be decreased. Here I am giving the one example. That's it. Digoxin plus antibiotics increase the bioavailability due to destruction of bacterial flora that inactivates digoxin in lower intestine. The next one is the malabsorption syndrome. See here, few antibiotics. Example, neomycin, if you administer along with vitamin A, B12, digoxin, decrease their rate of absorption. That's it. Madam, next slide, please. Then distribution. See here, distribution also plays important role in the potential drug interactions. See here, anticoagulants are administered along with phenylbutazone, chloral hydrate, increase the clotting time due to the displacement mechanism. Okay, here the competitively phenylbutazone, chloral hydrate are bind to the same binding sites of the anticoagulants like warfarin. Then anticoagulants, they shows their action immediately and prolongs their bleeding time. The next, talbutamides and sulfonamides, both will be bind on the same binding site. Then if you administer in combination, increase the hypoglycemic effect of talbutamide. So we never administered in combination of talbutamide and sulfonamides. Next slide, please. Then metabolism. See here, we know very well, liver is the major organ for metabolism of 90% of the drugs, or more than 90% of the drugs. Okay, see here, two types of metabolism interactions we to discuss here. One is the enzyme induction, that means increase the rate of metabolism, or it increases the count of enzymes. Second one is the enzyme inhibition, decrease the rate of metabolism. It is the most significant interaction in comparison to other interactions, because enzyme inhibition, the drug is accumulated in the body and it shows their toxic effects. Okay, see here, the proportion of drug metabolized by P450 enzymes. In case of cytochrome P450, 3A4 or 5, it involved in 30% of drug interactions, and CYP2D6 involved in 19% of drug interactions, and CYP1A or 2 involved in 11% of interactions, and CYP2C19 it involved in 8% of drug interactions, and remaining all like CYP2C8 or 9 involved in 16% of drug interactions, and CYP2E1 involved 4%, and CYP2B6 and CYP2A6 involve 3% interactions. Next slide, please. Then few examples for metabolism interactions. First one is the enzyme induction, means they will induce the enzymatic activity, or they will be increase the count of the enzymes, then which are within short period they involve in metabolism. Examples, if administered corticosteroids, oral contraceptives, coumarins, phenytoin along with barbiturates, decrease the plasma levels and decrease the efficacy of object drugs. Here object drugs are corticosteroids, oral contraceptives, coumarins, phenytoin. The prescription drug is barbiturate. Barbiturate induce the enzymatic action of microsomal enzymes. And next example is the rifampicin. It is also induce the enzymes. If administered along with oral contraceptives, oral hypoglycemics, then decrease their plasma levels and therapeutic failure takes place. The next one is the enzyme inhibition. MAO inhibitors and tyramine rich food. The combination enhances the absorption of unmetabolized tyramine and it causes hypertension or hypertensive crisis. The next is the metronidazole, phenylbutazone along with coumarins. It increases the anticoagulant property. And we know very well that is a popular example, the combination of alcohol and disulfiram. Okay, disulfiram induce the accumulation of alcohol metabolites, acetaldehyde. Then increase the plasma concentration of acetaldehyde levels in the body. Madam, next slide, please. Hello. Hello, madam. Next slide, please. Hello. Hello, madam. Yes, thank you. And then drug interactions and cytochrome P450. Been already discussed with you. In the presence of rifampicin, increase the cyclosporin elimination by induce the CYP3A4 action. And similarly, in the presence of itraconazole, it inhibits the CYP3A4 activity, then delays the cyclosporin elimination and it causes nephrotoxicity. Next slide, please. And then excretion interactions. See here, the major mechanisms of excretion interactions are alternation in renal blood flow, alternation of urine pH, competition for active secretions, and forced diuresis. Next slide, please. Then see here, first one is the hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Voice is clear, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes. See here, the first example is the if you administer penicillin or cephalosporins and naldixic acid along with probenecid, increase the plasma concentration of objective drugs because the competition will be arise during excretion. Then the probenecid will be secreted first. Then automatically increase the activity of penicillin, cephalosporin, naldixic acid. It is a positive drug interaction to us. The next is the change in urine pH, particularly antacids, thiazides, cetrazolamide drugs we administered along with amphetamine increase the passive reabsorption of basic drugs and increase the risk of toxicity. The next is the NSAIDs. Then see if you administer lithium bicarbonate along with NSAIDs, it decreases the renal clearance of lithium, then the chance of lithium toxicity is more in the body. Next slide, please. Right. Pharmacodynamic interactions. What is pharmacodynamics? What the drug does to the body. Okay. And then see here, two types of drug interactions we do expect here. One is the direct pharmacodynamic interaction. Second thing is the indirect pharmacodynamic interaction. Next slide, please. Then see here, in which drugs having similar or opposing pharmacological effects are used concomitantly. Then the three consequences of direct interactions are antagonism, addition or summation, synergism or potentiation. Next slide, please. Antagonism means both drugs show opposite actions. For example, acetylcholine and noradrenaline having opposite effects on heart. We know very well acetylcholine decreases the rate and force of contractions and noradrenaline increases the rate and force of contractions. If administered both drugs, there is no action because both combination neutralize the action on heart rate. Next, addition or summation. Even in the combination or will be administered individually, the net effect is similar. CNS represents like sedatives and hypnotics. If administered separately or in combination, we will get the same results. It's called addition or summation. Next, synergism or potentiation. Synergism or potentiation means here if administered individually means separately or in combination, that effect will be changed. In the combination, more effect occurs. Examples: alcohol enhance the analgesic activity of aspirin when compared to be administered separately. Next slide, please, madam. Then indirect pharmacodynamic interactions. See here examples. Salicylates decrease the ability of platelets to aggregate, thus impairing the homeostasis if warfarin-induced bleeding occurs. Both will be thinners, but their mechanism of action is different. Both will be blood thinners, but their mechanism of action is different. But both will be induce the humerase in patients. Next slide, please. Then consequences of drug interaction. Totally 3 types of consequences we would expect. One is the major, life-threatening, means lifelong therapy is required because of toxicity, like nephrotoxicity, hepatotoxicity. Okay. Next one is the moderate, deterioration of patient status. Third one is the minor, little effect. We are easy to adjust with that. Nausea, vomiting, okay, irritation. Those are the minor effects. Next slide, please. Reducing the risk of drug interactions. How we will be reduce the drug interactions? First one is the identify the patient's risk factors. So here we will be thorough information about on the patient profile. Okay. Then in order to we will be minimize the chance of drug interactions. So before prescribing of the drugs, first we will be understand the patient history. Means if the patient is suffering with chronic diseases, according to that we will be prescribe the drugs. Next, take through drug history, and also that is also very, very important. Drug induced problems. Okay, we know very well aspirin irritated the gastric means aspirin irritates the stomach. Then before that we will be educate the patient. The next, be knowledge about the actions of drugs being used. Already I told to you, as a pharmacist, we must update our knowledge. Okay, in order to we will be minimize the chance of drug interactions, and also always we will be have the touch with the co-professionals like physicians and other co-pharmacists, and consider therapeutic alternatives. Sometimes is not possible to overcome the drug interactions. Then we have the opportunity, simply we will be change the drug or medicine. Next, avoid complex therapeutic regimens when possible. As possible, avoid the combinations. Okay, more than 2 drugs. If necessary, we will be prescribe, and we will be we must be know thorough knowledge about on the drug history and educate the patient. That is also very, very important. As a pharmacist, our duty is not only guide to the physicians and also update our knowledge, and also we will be educate the patients about possible drug interactions. Means wrong time prescription, wrong time administration also one of the reason, because nowadays most of the prescriptions have more than 1 drug. Sometimes patients are wrongly administer the drug. Okay, that is also one of the reason. So we will be educate the patients for particularly time of administration and route of administration. Then monitor therapy. As a pharmacist, additional responsibility is we will be continuously monitor the therapy in order to we will be minimize the possible drug interactions. Next slide, please. Hello, madam. Next slide. Then influence of smoking on drug interactions. See, we know very well smoking increases the activity of drug metabolizing enzymes in the liver. Okay, example, diazepam, propoxyphene, theophylline, olanzapine, or their metabolism will be increased and their therapeutic efficacy will be decreased. Then therapeutic failure takes place. So before prescribing of the drug, we must know about the patient habits also. Okay, we will be suggest regarding the smoking. Otherwise, therapeutic failure takes place. Next slide, please. Influence of alcohol on drug interaction. We know very well chronic use of alcohol beverages may increase the rate of metabolism of many drugs. Examples: warfarin, phenytoin. Probably by increase the activity of hepatic enzymes, then therapeutic failure takes place. Okay. The next slide, please, madam. And particularly particularly who are taking the antidepressants, we must educate the patients regarding the habituation of alcohol. Must avoid the usage of alcohol because alcohol causes TNS depression. Okay, and if you use the antidepressants, then opposite effect takes place, therapeutic failure occurs. The next is the influence of food on drug interactions. Food affects the rate and extent of absorption of drugs from the GIT. Okay, suitable and common example is the tetracyclines with milk products. When we administer along with milk products, the complexation occurs and decrease the rate of absorption, and finally we are not enjoy the therapeutic benefits of the tetracycline or tetracyclines. And one more example is the what is called grape juice. It inhibits the microsomal enzyme function, then alters the rate of metabolism, and it increases toxicity in the body. Next slide, please. Then chemical drug interactions. Some drugs produce effects without altering cellular function and without binding to a receptor. Okay. Example: most antacids decrease the gastric acidity through simple chemical reactions, then alters the rate of absorption of many drugs. Next, drug laboratory interactions. See here, certain drugs, they produce false positive results. Then examples are cephalosporins, may alter urine glucose and ketone tests. Then they shows hyperglycemia, but patient doesn't have diabetes, but the cephalosporins shows wrongly hyperglycemia when we will use the urine as a sample for estimating the blood glucose level. Next slide, please. Then drug disease interactions. Already I told to you the chance of drug interactions are more in children as well as elderly patients. In case of children, the systems are not well developed, metabolic system also not well, so the chance of drug-drug interactions is more, and also drug accumulation is more in the body. And in case of elderly patients, because of advanced age, altered physiology, hormonal balance are responsible for drug interactions. Here I have given few examples which causes drug disease interactions and in elder patients. See here, antipsychotics, if you administer the antipsychotics in Parkinson's patients, then worsening of the Parkinson's disease symptoms. And if administer first generation calcium channel blockers in congestive
Sir, your voice has stopped, sir. Your voice is breaking, sir. Hello? Sir, there is a break in your voice, sir. We can't hear you. Sir, can you hear me? Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Now it is clear, sir. Actually, there is an interruption. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Drug disease interactions. See here, drug disease interactions are situations where the pharmacotherapy used to treat a disease causing worsening of another disease in a patient. Our intensity is different, but the drugs further worsening of the disease. For example, if you use the antipsychotics, if the patient already suffering with the Parkinson's disease, then the Parkinson's disease symptoms will be more. So we must avoid the usage of antipsychotic drugs in Parkinson's.
Sir, there is an interruption again. I think the participants can't hear you. Sir, is my voice audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Sir, can you speak now, sir, once?
Yeah. Yes, madam. I will continue,
no.
madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because of the overheat of the mobile, madam. Summer effect.
Okay, sir.
Closing Zoom automatically. Okay. The next thing is when we will be using aspirin in peptic ulcer diseases, the chance of gastrointestinal bleeding is more. We know very well all NSAIDs, they cause the loss of 5 ml of blood in after single dose administration. Madam, sorry to say, and hypertension is more. Okay, when we will be use the warfarin along with acetyl salicylic acid, the chance of risk of along with the potassium chloride, the chance of hyperkalemia, because spironolactone have the property potassium retention. When we will be administered along with potassium chloride, further accumulation of the potassium in the body occurs. Then finally, the patient suffers with the hyperkalemia. That's it. That's it, madam. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you for your patience. Sorry for the disturbances during presentation. Very unfortunate, madam. I did not expect this one. Very sorry.
Okay, so you have anything to say, sir? Request Dr. Paul, sir, to give us vote of thanks for the speakers for the session.
I want
would like to have a question.
Yeah,
sir, 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, I will give the one suggestion to the everyone, that is, don't go for self-medication, because in the last session, Sushma Madam said very clearly about this problems arises with self-medication. Because most of the people believe the voice of friends, neighbors, and family members. Even nowadays, most of the people are present in the home only. They are searching the YouTube.
Yes,
unnecessarily, they are follow the various combinations. Sometimes we'll be follow the allopathy, and sometimes we'll be follow the Ayurvedic. Okay, they will be follow the home remedies also. Particularly during the pandemic, don't try unnecessarily. Don't believe any advertisement. Okay, if you get the fever or what is cold, you'll be started easy methods, stream, etc. Streaming, that is the best method to you. So don't follow unnecessarily. Don't believe any voice unnecessarily. Before following, one point you will be remember, that is the person is means is a pharmacist or prescriber. That's it. Thank you, madam.
That was a good take-home message for us with the session, sir. So Azma Yasmin, the participant, want to pose a question to you, sir. Ma'am,
Yes.
can you ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Sir, actually, it is a prescription drug. What I have, a calcium channel blocker with calcium supplements. Can you highlight something on that with the drug interaction?
Calcium channel blockers and
With
calcium supplements.
supplement. Yeah.
Definitely, madam, because calcium channel blockers, they will cause us constipation. That is the thing. And then
constipation is another question. We are not highlighting on the constipation. Pharmacodynamics. I am talking regarding pharmacodynamics, sir.
Okay, calcium channel blockers and calcium supplements. Okay.
Yeah. You can answer me later also, sir. If you, in case we have to refer it, you can answer me, because it is a prescription drug given to me by the doctor, and I'm in search of this to find out the drug-drug interaction regarding that, and also with the pantoprazole.
Okay, madam. I will be sending detailed information to you, madam.
Yeah, how can we contact you, sir?
Just you will be send a message to me, madam. You will get the number from the Paul, sir. Have any doubts? You will be just put a message.
Yes,
Because
sir.
here I am facing a problem.
Okay, fine.
Okay, just you will get the phone, my phone number from the Paul sir. Okay, just you will be put the message to me. Have the that is the same WhatsApp number also to me. Okay.
You can put your phone number on the screen, sir, so that we can take down.
Otherwise, you will be note down, madam. I will tell my
I'll
phone
post it,
number.
madam. One second. I'll post it.
Yeah,
post
okay, fine.
Ma'am, sir, number will be posted in the chat box. Please kindly note it down so that
Yeah,
your
fine.
question can be reverted to sir.
Yeah.
And there is, sir, actually this question was posed to speaker one, but I hope you can answer that because now ma'am is not in the session. So please kindly answer. It is Raymond Lubega. He is asking, like leaving all the factors aside, do you personally feel self-medication is important? And to what extent, because in case of some emergency situations like diarrhea, eating dirty food and all, in that case, self-medication is to be needed. And then loperamide to be used. Would you recommend me to do self-medication? Still in that case, do I have to visit a doctor?
Madam, for the diarrhea is the two causes, madam. One is the infection. Second thing is the food poisoning. Okay. Loperamide is the drug of choice. It is effectively control the diarrhea, but every time is not required to visit the hospital. Once you will be try with the loperamide, if you are not get the relief, then you will be visit the hospital.
That's what he was asking, sir. Should I take it, or before that I need to contact the doctor? Was his question?
No need, madam. Actually, every time is not required to visit, approach the physician. Okay, depends upon the number of motions in a day. That is also we will be considered. Okay, the count is simply you will be take the loperamide. That is more than sufficient. And one more point I am highlighting to you: the diarrhea is caused by food. Then loperamide is more than sufficient. Okay, then it is caused by infection. Then we will be approach the physician. But initially loperamide is more than sufficient. That is conclusion.
I hope Mr. Raymond got his answer. And there is a question like Abhijit Sasmal. I have a question, sir. In COVID-19 situation, physicians are telling us to consume a lot of more medication like doxycycline, ivermectin, paracetamol, Morteir-FX and all. So his question is, look, here we consume lot more than more medications. In this, an example of drug interaction, sir. Any drug interaction will be there.
Still, such drug interactions are not reported, madam. Doxycycline, ivermectin, paracetamol, all are. We are not seeing drug interactions with that.
Yeah, I hope Mr. Abhijit Sasmal.
My sincere suggestion is here in the person is said very clearly. We know very well all antibiotics, they will be alters the intestinal microbial flora. So not only during the pandemic time, and also when we will use the antimicrobial agents, we must take the multivitamin tablet. Because of antibiotics disturbs the microbial flora, decrease the rate of absorption of vitamins. To overcome such problem, we will take the vitamins. Then I am not found any drug interactions between the doxycycline, ivermectin, paracetamol, and monthly cost vitamin C and D3. That's it, madam.
That's it, sir. That's the end of the queries, I guess, for today. So I request Dr. Paul to give his vote of thanks for the session.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. It's a good morning to good afternoon, actually. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very fascinating and engaging program of one day continuing pharmacy education program, which was conducted by Aditya Bangalore Institute of Pharmacy Education and Research as a part of RGHS Silver Jubilee celebration. It's not just coordinator who has been conducting, it's a huge team of ABHYPR who was doing a lot of programs like this. We have started these kind of webinars since from the last year, and many webinars we have did, and many conferences we did, many faculty development programs also we have conducted. it's not the one person, it's a huge team of Abhay. So because of that, first of all, I would like to thank our chairman, Dr. B.A. Vishwanath sir, for his extending support of whatever the programs we have been conducting, continuous support throughout the session, and giving all kind of ideas for his betterment of the sessions. And my heartfelt thanks to Suchitra madam, today's webinar convener, and also thank you Dr. Nagastri ma'am, and also all our faculty members, those who have been participated, who have been back of screen, and also for the success of our today's program. And it is a very impressed of the ability of all the participants, those who have been logged in at 10 o'clock, around 10:30, and till the session ends, many of the our students and from participants from other institutions are also joined. It's all together, it's a conference team actually. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, Paul sir. I thank all the speakers, our chairman sir and principal ma'am, Paul sir, and all the participants and the teachers who have been, guiding me for the session, and at the same time for your patience. All the speakers, all the participants, you have been beautifully managing the situation, and thanks a lot for your patience. We will get back with more and more informative webinar for you guys. So for today, the session is going to end. Sir, can I end this session? Mittal sir?
So sorry ma'am, I forgot to tell Paranjoti sir is there. I would like to thank him once again. Sorry sir. Sorry, he's not there, I think.
Dr. Paranjoti sir is a backbone of our research department, so he'll definitely be there. He's a most important person for us. And Suchitra ma'am.
Yes, madam.
It's okay, madam.
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah, ma'am, I would like to end a note from you.
I think Dr. Paul has already informed the vote of thanks, and it's long time, and on Sunday we have started from the morning session and we have ended up with the afternoon session. We have taken all of them a huge time of today. We would like to thank a huge thanks to the RGHS for giving us an opportunity to conduct this event of today. I thank all my team members for taking up this session and making it as a wonderful session of the day. And last but not the least, our beloved chairman, sir, for giving us the opportunity to conduct this session. Thank you all once again. Good day.
Yeah, I think that's it for today. All of you stay home, stay safe, and take care of yourself and your family. Stay blessed.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
So can I end this session?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you.